I feel like there's not enough light on my face. Black people need light. That is out of focus. Maybe I should just come closer. Come close to me, baby. I need new lenses. I also need a new crew. It's hot. Whew. Hallelujah. This is just so much of my face. I am excited that a film that I worked on called Down with the King is coming out on June 28th on digital and on VOD. It went to the Cannes Film Festival, which is an amazing feat to have a film that I worked on go to Cannes. It was in the acid section. It won the Grand Prix of the Duval Film Festival. It's days like these when you reflect on what it took to bring that film to its current point. So I was not involved in the writing or the production of the film up until the green light. I'm told that was a 5-year journey, and the director and co-writer Diego Ongaro was close to quitting the entire project just before they got the green light that they can move forward. I think I was referred by someone to Rob Cristiano, the lead producer on set. This film was shot in October of 2020, 7 months after our first lockdown around the COVID virus. The film industry shut down for several months that whole summer, and folks banded together, created what they called the Way Forward, and developed some protocols for how we can shoot during the COVID lockdown. And so production was kind of opening back up, but it wasn't up fully. But I was let go of my job that I've been working in May. So there have been several months of no work and almost no prospects and no idea of will I ever work in production again? Like, will we ever be able to go on set again? So it was important to me to prove to myself that I could do this. When the pandemic hit, I got very almost agoraphobic. Like, I did not go outside. I wiped every single thing I brought into my apartment with Lysol wipes. Like, it was, I got very scared of the prospect of what our new life was going to be like. When the pandemic and the lockdown first happened, my roommate went to Boston and was there for almost 3 months, I want to say, taking care of her mother, and I had the place all to myself, and I started to develop a sense of security living by myself. And so when my roommate came back, I was very afraid. We have different views of how strict we need to be in terms of the pandemic, so that was very emotional and very difficult for me to handle. So a friend of mine went to work on a film out in California, and she asked if I would house sit and cat sit for her, and I jumped at the chance because it was an ability to be in an apartment by myself. I'd have full, ability to be, as comfortable as possible in an apartment all by myself. And so I did that for a couple months, and then I realized, if she can go back to production, maybe I should go back to production. So when this job came around, I decided to take the leap. So there were many things that I had to overcome emotionally in order to do this film. It was a sleepaway job, so everyone was on living in the Berkshires for the time of the shoot, and I would be sharing a house with 3 strangers. We would get tested pretty frequently. We had PPE, we had cleaning supplies, all the things that were in the protocols, but we were a really low budget production. I think cast and crew all together, there were about 20 people. It was very, I think, smartly scheduled so that we rarely had more than 2 people on camera at any one time. Rarely had more than 5 people on set. The location that they found was the main location, the main house was a brilliant find because it was very close to our second location. So our primary 2 locations, I think we shot for 18 days, and maybe 14 of those 18 days were in these 2 locations. So it was really, really brilliant and auspicious to have found this location. We could have the production office above the garage, and so catering and everything, supplies and things of that nature could be in the garage. And then we were filming for the most part in the house or in the woods around the house. So we just kind of lucked out. Being on set, it was an emotional challenge, but it was like ripping the Band-Aid off, and I'm proud that I did it. I'm glad that I did it. It was not easy. When you see the final product, it's you don't see all of the kind of blood, sweat, and tears that go on with it. I was living in a house in Connecticut, still in the Berkshires, but it was about a 40-minute drive from our location. So that was, early morning and late night when we're done shooting, we're driving in these country roads, and I saw all manner of wildlife. And it was, luckily, because I lived in the house with the four other people, our car was very often filled, and so I felt more safe. But we saw bears. The scariest one actually was an owl that was sitting in the middle of the road, and as we turned a corner, its head like turned all the way around. It was like the scariest horror movie. We saw a cougar, several deer. The deer were the scariest ones because they were so prevalent, and they would just jump out in front of your car. So that we were always afraid that somebody would hit a deer or in some way have an unsafe drive. But luckily precautions were taken. Most people didn't have to drive more than the 40 minutes. It wasn't like a 2-hour drive either way. And most people went home with someone, or most people had someone to ride with. Some people stayed at the house that we shot at, so then they never had to leave their location. COVID protocols. We had our COVID compliance officer was a nurse, and she also did the testing. We also had an EMT supporting her for every testing day. We tested 3 times a week, everyone, because we were so small. We were considered Zone A in terms of the way forward protocol. So Zone A are the ones that are closest to the actors. The actors could not wear masks because they're acting, so actors need to be tested at minimum 3 times a week, and anyone within close proximity of the actor. So the camera people, sound, need to be tested at the same cadence. And then because we were so small, we just tested everybody at the same cadence. So we got tested 3 times a week. We had these air filters, we had PPE, we had hand washing at every sink in every bathroom. Between the production assistants and the COVID compliance officer, they would wipe down the surfaces of where we were shooting and all our high touch areas several times a day. I think it was like 3 or 4 times over the course of the day. But most of our shooting was outside, and as a crew we kept our masks on. And for the most part we avoided big crowded scenes. Remember the biggest challenge was to get clearance from the Screen Actors Guild on our concert shoot day, because we wanted to use a hazer, which is a fog machine. If someone were infected and their droplets got into the air, it would hang on to the fog droplets and possibly spread COVID very quickly. So we did all the precautions, all the extras were tested, but that was one of the challenges in terms of COVID. It wasn't, and then another, not really a challenge, but another precaution was that any time that 2 actors had to like kiss or be in really close proximity, they got tested a rapid test right before on the day of the scene as well. Also, being away from home was a challenge because we also was isolated. From March 2020 up through this production, I hadn't physically been in the same room with my family. There was a fear that you could spread the disease. Testing was not really widely available and very expensive, really. Not like it is now where you can get at-home tests. The tests, you had to go to a facility or have a doctor, an ENT administer the test. So about a third of the way through the shoot, or 2/3 of the way through the shoot, my sister called and told me that she had tested positive for COVID. And that was really hard. I mean, that was a time when COVID was pretty much a death sentence. People of all ages, of all health abilities were dying of COVID. The symptoms were still being understood, and everybody had a different symptom, and it was just a really hard thing to be so far away, but also having to stay away, and then not wanting it to affect my ability to be on set. Only a couple people on the set knew that she tested positive, and there were other people in the set, had some family members and distant family members and close friends test positive during that time. And it was a grueling schedule, a lot of traveling, a lot of having to carry heavy equipment through the woods and on farms and ticks and, and wildlife, and to, on top of that, have to be so far away from family and to have to manage through just not knowing, whether your loved one was going to have a severe time with COVID, or even, live past the time that you would be there. Like, the worst fear is that someone would pass away while you're off doing some movie, which, makes movies feel so trivial. So it was, it was plus and minuses. It was their highs and lows, but I'm so proud of the fact that the film got finished. I'm so proud of the team, the accomplishments and accolades that they have achieved. Is so heartwarming and wonderful, and it's going to be available on VOD on June 28th, and I hope you check it out. And so this is just a little bit about making a film during COVID, and the ups and downs of making a film in general. I hope you enjoy the film.